I'm an actor. I was born in Australia. My mum is a refugee to Australia, and when she was a little girl, she had to flee her home country, and she was very, very poor, and she went to 15 different high schools, 15 different schools before she turned 14. So she had a really, really tough life growing up. And then unfortunately, my dad decided to leave me and my mum when I was 2 years old. And essentially, what that meant was a tougher life. A more difficult, challenging life in the sense that we didn't have a lot of money, and we lived in a really, really poor area in Australia. And when I was 12 years old, I had to start working. And I actually started working in a video store, strangely enough. When I was 12 years old, I started working. I used to go after school every single day to this video store, and what I would do is clean shelves. And I would just clean shelves. And this camera guy's like, stop moving, stay still. And I used to clean shelves, and it would take me a month to get through the entire store. And when I finished, I had to start all over again. And I would just constantly clean dust. But what it allowed me to do is watch movies. And when I was a kid, I would just watch movies as I'm cleaning. And I get to pick the movie, normally, depending on what manager was working. And that was a really cool thing. And strangely enough, that probably pushed me in a direction where I'm here today. Now, if you look at my life on paper, you guys would probably be like, wow, Nathaniel is so successful. He's working on my favorite TV show. He's somewhat of an attractive guy. Somewhat. You know, he probably has lots of money. I see his Instagram, he travels the world. What an amazing life. But you know what the funny thing is? There's somebody in this world who would consider me a failure. Whether I'm not rich enough, not good looking enough, not successful enough in my acting career, not good enough as an actor. There's someone out there in this world that would believe that. And that's why I stopped listening to the world. And I find it really, really interesting, and I want to just get a show of hands. How many people have had a great weekend so far? Put your hands up. Awesome. How many people have had something bad happen this week? Show of hands. Something bad. Not the best. Keep your hand up. This month? This year? The last 5 years, something bad happened, it really hurt? Your lifetime? Has anyone still got their hand down? I'd love to meet you. The point I'm trying to make is that every single person in this room, we all have something in common. We all face troubles, problems, struggles. Would you agree? Right? It's part of life. What I've found really, really interesting is this idea of depression. I'll be honest with you, I've suffered from depression at different stages of my life. And I'll be really honest, my mum has suffered with depression her entire life. And I absolutely get why. Because she's had to really, really struggle. And she's had a tough life. So I've seen what it does firsthand. Now, would anyone be honest and say, yeah, I suffer from depression in this room on some level? Yeah? And that's what I kind of want to talk about today in some shape or form. And I hope you guys don't mind. If you're really bored by this, you just want to ask questions what my favourite colour is, we can totally do that. But I want to talk about this idea because I think it's really, really important. And what I want to do is give you my outtake on what I've seen from my own life. And a lot of people always say to me, why are you so positive? Why are you so encouraging, and why are you so happy? And it's because I've learned and I've seen things firsthand, and that's what I want to sort of share with you guys today. Now, I often tweet a lot of things and I talk about a lot of stuff on my Twitter, and every time I tweet something that somebody responds to, It's happening in my own life. It's a real experience, and trust me, I go through some really, really big struggles. Even though you may look at my life and think, wow, he's so awesome, and he gets to do all these cool things. Like last week, I missed out on a huge opportunity to be like the star of my own show, and it didn't happen, you know? And I could have really taken that badly, but then I've learned that those things aren't really, really important, because there's this thing that this world tries to give us, and I feel like this is where this idea of depression comes from, and why so many people struggle with it, is because we get so engaged in this world, and the world says to us, hey, if you have money, if you have a nice car or a great house, or you're really popular in all these cool groups, you're going to feel this happiness. And even like, if I look at my career, the world will say, if you're an actor, you're going to be so much better than everybody else. You're going to be doing what you love to do, and that's going to bring you this fulfillment on the inside. And what I found really, really interesting from my experience of my career is that everything the world promised to give me never really happened. Do you guys agree with that? You know? And here's another thing that's really interesting about, I love dreaming. And I love the idea of chasing a dream and going after something you love. And I'll talk about that a little bit before we end today. But I also think the reality is that once you achieve your dream, if my dream was just to make it as an actor, and I make it because I'm working on a TV show, what happens the very next day after I get that dream? I dream of something else. And then I dream of something else. Let's say one day I say I want to win an Oscar. And if I win an Oscar one day and I get it, does everything just stop? And I'm like, well, I'm done. I got my dream. Yay. You know? That's my Oscar. That was the thing that was supposed to make me super, super happy. But I don't feel like that. You know? And that's what I think this idea of depression is coming from, because we get told one thing, that this is going to make us really, really happy. And then when we get it, or we get close to it, or we miss out on it, we have this unhappiness. And I was talking about this with the people that came to my little meet and greet today, and we're sort of just talking about this idea, and what is it? What makes you happy then? You know? And what I think is so much more important is, and what fills that emptiness on the inside, is having purpose. How many people can honestly say they have purpose in life, or they know what their purpose is? It's really, really complicated. If you do, that's awesome. But it's a really, really hard thing, and you know, I've sort of struggled with this idea for a long time. Like, what is purpose? You know? And everything that I've learned from my career, and all the things that the world has offered is, and I guess I'll start on this starting point is, and I tweeted this recently, those who can be more grateful can be happy with less. Now what does that mean essentially? In theory, we could all wake up in the morning and talk about our have-nots. Who hasn't got something that they want? Wow, you guys are really lucky people. There's like, and I think what I'm trying to say here is that there's something we can always complain about and be upset about and say, I haven't got this, I haven't got that. Hey, I wish I had Ian Somerhalder's eyes. But I don't have them, you know? Now I could wake up every morning saying, I wish I had his eyes, I wish I had his eyes, but it's not going to change. Or I could be like, hey, I really like my eyebrows. You know? I do. I really do like my eyebrows. So, I think what's really, really important, and I think it's so essential for every single person to start learning how to create habits of being grateful for what you have, not what you have not. And I know it's really, really easy to say, and someone might be in the audience right now going, well, that's so easy to say, but you know, what difference does it make? And it's like, well, it's easy to say, but it's better to do. And how do you do that? And this is my argument. And I've watched my mum suffer from depression for so long. And this is my belief on, you know, that negative attitude is we've created habits in our life. And maybe that habit that you've created is like talking about the things that you don't have, or being unhappy with the things that you wish you had but you don't have. You know, and every single day that you let yourself do that, eventually it becomes a habit. And I'll give you an example. And I was saying this with my group. You know when the elevators aren't working on the lifts? The lifts, you know the escalators? Everyone know what an escalator is? Those moving things, stairs? Now, has anyone had that experience when you're on the escalator, but it's broken, right? It's broken. And you're like, okay, well, I'll just walk on it. And you take that first step and you go, whoa, why did I do that? Because your body has created this habit. Every time it sees the escalator, when you step on it, you start moving. Just, do you guys get that feeling? Does anyone get that feeling, or am I just crazy? Yes? Or no?
No.
Okay. Do you know what that is? There's nothing different. There's no difference about that surface. It's just your mind creating that, getting used to that habit of standing on that thing and seeing it and moving. Now the exact same thing happens every single time you get negative about what's going on in your life, or you're unhappy or ungrateful. Because what you do is you just create habits in your head, and eventually your mind just starts doing that without you asking it to. Now the only way to change that is to start being positive, and that's really, really hard for some people. And I always say, the amount of time it takes to create a habit is the same amount of time it's going to take to break it. So if you've been like negative for 7 years, it's going to take you 7 years to break it. Does that make sense? Kind of? It's a very quiet audience, isn't it, today? Very quiet. So anyway, and some people go, well, gosh, it's going to take 7 years. What's the point, Nathaniel? Because the good news is, in 7 years' time, you can break that habit and you can actually start smiling again. You know, which is so, so important. And that's where I'm constantly fighting this battle of like what Hollywood says I should and shouldn't do and how I should look. And then you go, I'm just going to stop listening and just be happy with who I am, you know? Now, I tweeted once that life is an experience, and I spoke about this yesterday, and I really, really believe this. Is everybody leaving? Zach. That's okay, you're going to miss the most important part. Wah, wah, wah.